everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather with an afternoon update on our upcoming major snowstorm with a potential blizzard this weekend for the East Coast, and next week is looking intense. Welcome back, everyone. How's it going out there? Go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to my channel if you hadn't already to get all my daily updates. Sometimes I do twice a day like today because we have a lot to talk about. Plus, we'll go over next week because that's also looking intense as well. So we got a lot to go over. Let's zoom in on the US view of our hazard map. All these areas in pink and gray, that is your dangerous wind chill where they got warnings and advisories out, and much of Fargo extending all the way into Sioux Falls. That extends all the way into Chicago. These are actual temperatures right now, so the wind chill is about 20 degrees lower than that, and this is in the middle of the afternoon, guys, so it's only going to plummet from here. And we've got some heavier snow that left Denver today. That's hanging out over Kansas with some heavier snow out in western parts of Kansas here. That is your winter weather advisories all the way down into the panhandle of Texas that we've been talking about with the Texas snow on this channel upcoming. That extends actually all the way down into West Texas where they're expecting some snow. And we also have some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in portions of New Mexico as well. So let's take a look at the overall model, what's happening currently right now. As we go into the afternoon hours, there's your heavier snow indicating with that darker blue. That's where these systems are looking to be overperforming of a good swath of 4 to 7 inches. You actually might see some of these isolated areas upwards to 10 inches is definitely not out of the question, as a very convective banding is happening right now with some heavier snow that will continue to dive southward into New Mexico and eventually get into the panhandle of Texas, while we have some heavier rain, light to moderate rain, and pushing into southern parts of Georgia here, as well as Alabama, and that extends into Florida as well as central Florida. So as we expand the view and continue into tomorrow morning, that snow takes a beeline south into places like Santa Fe, Albuquerque will start getting some snow, into the mountains of New Mexico, into Angel Fire. That'll actually swing into the panhandle of Texas with some snow going to be breaking out as it gets cold enough, as we have that reinforcing shot of Arctic air that's going to be plunging southward. And as we continue in the daytime hours, that snow will start to intensify over the panhandle of Texas, eventually drop and have a dusting or two down here in West Texas, and then it will dive southeast and kind of fizzle out. So I do feel it makes it all the way into portions of, say, Wichita Falls, but you'll probably get kind of scattered flurry activity in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, while our attention turns to the north, because that's going to be the beginning stages of what will be our developing major snowstorm and potential noreaster, and by the time we get into the weekend time frame. So let's take a look at the overall ensemble member guidance on the vorticity index, and you can see these tight isobars. By the time we get into Friday time frame, that southern system really starts to wind up. So it's just really starting to crank up at the beginning stages, as this looks to turn negative tilt by the time it gets off the west coast. So yeah, by the time we get into Saturday time frame into the afternoon hours, this rapidly develops into a intense storm, as this dive and pulls in that Arctic air, goes all the way down to the Carolinas, takes advantage of those warm sea surface temperatures, and rapidly lifts up with these tight isobars, when some very heavy winds and heavy snow will start breaking out along the East Coast, and especially it'll start really cranking as we get into the Northeast along the I-95 corridor into New England. And the latest GFS and ensemble members guidance kind of implies the same thing. So we're already seeing, you know, congruency on the ensembles, and say, hey, we've got a high potential of a developing noreaster and almost blizzard that could be breaking out for this weekend along the East Coast with some very heavy snow. So here's the overall setup on the anomaly index on the North American view. It's got a great engine to work with, because this subtropical jet really activates. We showed you the drops recently on this channel in the SOI index, and I felt like the subtropical jet is really going to start getting its act together with those negative drops as of late. And with that lagging indicator, that's coming to fruition, as this will set the stage for our powerful nor'easter that's going to be lifting up off the coast. We've got this blocking feature up here, which is going to help amplify this system as it continues to swing up the coast, you know, getting into that weekend time frame. And look at the latest integrated vapor transport index. This is the amount of water vapor that's in the atmosphere, and that is pretty much off the chart, guys. So we have an extreme amount of energy that's going to be pumping in, taking advantage of those warmer temperatures off the coast here. And that is going to be really cranking up this storm, and then putting all that water vapor into the East Coast with those very high winds and a lot of heavy snow that's going to be on the table as we get into that weekend time frame. So let's break this down and see how it all plays out. By the time we get into that Friday afternoon time frame, there's the setup, dragging down all that Arctic air from the north. I showed you all the temperatures this morning. That's going to be that reinforcing shot. We got all those dangerous wind chills happening. That is going to bring all the more colder air all the way down into the southeast, back into Florida. We've got a low pressure system that's going to be developing off the Carolina coast. And on the backside, we're going to have snow starting to break out in southern Ohio, far extreme portions of Kentucky, far extreme portions of Tennessee, getting into North Carolina, going into Virginia, as well as West Virginia, into PA, going into upstate New York, as well as Jersey as we get into that Friday afternoon, Friday night time frame. It's 1,002 millibar. That's no big deal right now, but watch. I mean, just 12 hours later, this rapidly deepens back down to a lower than 970. So that is an incredible, intense storm with rapid deepening over a 12-hour period, and that would set the stage for a very heavy snow event along the East Coast, starting in Virginia Beach, going up the Delmarva, into Delaware, into Jersey, up the I-95 corridor, into Long Island, New York City, Philly, Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Cape Cod, up the coast here into Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine, with this developing rapid deepening low pressure. And as we get into that, you know, Saturday night time frame, here's the latest indication, that down to a 967 millibar low pressure. Look how tight the isobars are. You can't get any tighter than that. That is an indication where it could really start to intensify. And with this blocking feature up to the north here, even the latest Euro model actually does a little loop. It does a little loop and actually sits and spins for a good 12 hours and then cranks up. Obviously, if that were to come to fruition, that would keep the intensity of the snowfall around for a longer period of time and just put those hurricane force potential winds off the coast here with blinding snow and heavy snow, 1 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rate. So you're talking a bona fide nor'easter would be on the table at that point. And then as we get into the GFS, yes, kind of implies the same thing. So we're seeing a lot of major models really kind of zoom in and come together. So we know at this point there's going to be a powerful nor'easter. What we don't really know as of yet is the ultimate exact track and who's going to get those crazy totals, 1, 2, upwards to 3 feet possibly in spots with some isolated amounts. As it looks like right now, some of these models are spitting out really some crazy kind of insane of snow amounts at this stage of the game. But we're still 4 or 5 days out, so we still got a lot of time to track the ultimate track. But right now, we're just looking at a significant event that is on the table for the East Coast and the Northeast as we get into New England. And the latest Canadian model is just basically on another planet, down to a 952 millibar. That would be some crazy stuff. That is an intense storm. So yeah, we're looking at all the models really starting to come together and say, hey man, this has got huge potential to do a lot of heavy snow and extreme amount of winds along the coastline here. So let's get into some of those winds. I mean, if this were to come to fruition, yeah, that would put some hurricane force winds. Luckily, at this particular run offshore, because I mean that's 100-mile-per-hour winds. That's Category 2 type straight, hurricane type force winds with blinding snow, heavy snow, and cranking over an extended period of time. So that would have us obviously have a lot of power outages. I mean, I like snow, but man, when it comes with all that, I mean, it's a different level. It comes with a different level, coming up with some very high winds. And here's the latest European guidance. It actually puts the hurricane force winds inland. That would, this is 92 miles an hour, guys. That would be an intense storm if this were to come to fruition. So obviously we're going to be fine tuning this over the next couple of days. But yes, all indications are right now we're looking like a pretty intense storm. Here's the latest European guidance saying, hey, we could get upwards to possibly 10 inches into Virginia. It's spitting out some crazy amounts up into Delmarva, going up into Delaware here with some 2 feet of snow in spots, up to Jersey, getting into Long Island, going into Connecticut, Massachusetts, there's Rhode Island, up to Cape here, going into Vermont, New Hampshire, up to Maine. So easily all these areas are a good foot of snow. You see it starts off in the Carolinas with an inch or 2 of snow. It starts to get its act together, 3 to 5 inches into West Virginia. But as it comes up the coast, looks like an I-95 setup with some very heavy snow just along the coast there. And then here's the latest Canadian model. Basically implies the same thing. So you can see the subtle shifts, and you're going to get that this far out. So right now, we know there's a major storm on the table. What we don't know is the exact track and ultimate who's going to get what at this stage of the game. So we're just looking at for model congruency and looking at some of these, ensemble members guidance right now. And yeah, this guy has a high potential of a significant event that's on the table. So once that moves out, then our attention turns in to essentially next week, because it's been high and dry for much of the West Coast here. But that all changes in a big way, because a lot of the cold air starts to shift out west with the rapid warm up in the midsection of the country. South winds turn around. As the winds turn around, you've got those increased temperature anomalies, and that's just going to be setting the stage as these temperatures slowly start to tick up over the first several days of February, while our atmospheric river comes back into play off into Washington and to Oregon and northern parts of California. Yes, it's going to be cold enough again where it's going to have snow breaking out, and British Columbia here, going into eastern parts of Washington, eastern Oregon here, going back into Idaho. So you had a little drought as of late, but it's going to come back in a big way. So as we continue the view and get into Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, yes, we got the south winds. We got actually rain coming back for Texas, Oklahoma, getting into Kansas, and getting into Arkansas, Louisiana, as these temperatures start to really warm up in the midsection of the country with the cold plunge of Arctic air on the backside, with that snow moving in and breaking out in the midsection of the country. And then as we continue and look at some of these anomalies, and this is what's really concerning even this far out, man, look at that. Look at the anomalies with those 20 and 30 degrees above average temperatures. Now, granted, this is next week, guys. So we're already looking at next week, kind of gives you an overview of what could be on the table with that another Arctic front plunging in from the west. And look at that, separation of the extreme anomalies. That is severe weather written all over it. You saw what happened in December, right? And it's almost like looking at, getting back into the 20 and 30 degree above average temperatures with that cold air plunging in from the west. It's almost impossible to not have severe weather, and that's type of setup. So yes, I'm getting concerned. Even as we look into next week, we could be talking about severe weather and more tornadoes that potentially on the table, along with snow on the backside. Because look at the dew points, and as we rapidly warm up in the midsection of the country, we're back to those 60 and high 60 dew points, back into portions of Texas, Louisiana, get into Arkansas, going back into Mississippi. So Yeah, I mean, this is definitely extremely concerning, even this far out, to say, hey, we could be looking at some more, even though it's February, Mother Nature doesn't have a time span when, they want severe weather or not. It doesn't really know. If conditions are right, it's going to happen. And it looks like that could be on the table as we get into the next week. But then that Arctic air plunges on the south side, on the backside there. And as we get into that Thursday time frame, now we could be looking at some snow potentially breaking out into Oklahoma, into Texas, as this would rapidly start to wind up with potentially severe weather on the front half and then ice and snow on the back half. So even after we get done with this week with this nor'easter, we got a lot on the table to fine tune for next week, because it looks like a pretty intense week that's could be coming to play as we get into that next week time frame. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.